Beyond Blue has really been integral to my recovery journey. They've been there from the very first beginning when I was looking at the forums till now where, you know, I call their hotlines or I use their apps. I don't think I would be here if I didn't have their support. And donations and fundraising really make that possible. Like it's such a small thing, but it does change a lot of lives. And it really allows me to, you know, keep doing the work that I'm doing these days and help change the narrative for other people that are just like me.
Sharon and Kristy, welcome to the I Could Change Impact webinar series. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jeremy.
It's so inspiring to see those initial videos and to see that one in particular, because the challenges of mental health are often hidden. I think you would well agree the extent to which we can be living and working with people. We have no idea of what they're suffering from, the impact on their lives, the impact on their families and communities, on the broader economy. Perhaps if, I mean, there's a number of incredible organisations in this space, and we have this long-running partnership now with Beyond Blue, who's been doing incredible work with the Australian community for many years. Sharon, perhaps if we could start with you, just explaining, what does Beyond Blue do?
Absolutely, and thanks so much for that lovely introduction, Jeremy. So look, Beyond Blue is probably Australia's most well-known, trusted, and in fact most visited mental health brand. So since 2000, we have been providing advice, support, and connection for millions of people throughout Australia who are impacted by anxiety, depression, and suicide. Our vision is to ensure that everyone in Australia can achieve their best possible mental health. So quite a lofty vision, but a really important one. And we do this by working with the community to improve the health outcomes by making it easier, making it people feel better earlier, get well and stay well, which is a pretty simple statement, but a really important one. We've just worked on our new strategy that we're moving forward, and it can really be described with 3 words: earlier, easier, together. So it's a nice catchy one for us all to focus on. So our focus really is moving towards that early intervention, because we know that the evidence shows that if we can actually make an impact and educate and make a difference in people's lives earlier, that we can actually intervene and stop a crisis occurring. So in terms of what we actually do, there's kind of 4 key pillars that I'll explain our services under. And the first is understanding. So what we really want to make sure that we can do is make sure that people in the community do understand those early signs and symptoms of mental ill health, and know how to look after themselves, but also how to identify those signs and reach out for support in others around them. So, and really encourage people to, you know, to sort of reduce that stigma of reaching out and help, you know, seeking your own health support. So we do that by sharing a range of information across our resources through our website and through a range of channels. We kind of see ourselves, you might hear us talk about being a big blue door, and that's what we see ourselves at Beyond Blue, so that people can come to us as that big welcoming door for information. Our second key area is supporting. And we have a range of direct support services that we provide. First and foremost is our 24/7 Beyond Blue support service. And I know that Kristy is going to share a lot with you today about that incredible service and the support that we provide there. We also provide our online peer support forums, which basically is a moderated safe space for people to have conversations, people with lived experience, to share that experience in a really safe way with each other. We have a new access program, which provides one-on-one mental health coaching for people sort of in that early stage. So it's 6 free sessions, no referral needed from a doctor, and that's offered both to individuals and more recently to small businesses. And then we have our BU support program, which is an incredible program that operates throughout schools around Australia, providing resources to educators so that we can build that, you know, resilient young people that really are empowered. I guess the education that probably Kristy and I didn't get when we were going through that school phase. Our third pillar is around connecting. So for us, we know that it's really important that people feel connected within their community and to each other. And we do that in particular through a couple of programs. We have an incredible speakers program where we have around 200 people with lived experience who go out and share stories about hope, recovery and resilience and help people seek support. And then our Blue Voices program, which is a group of people with lived experience who actually help co-design many of our programs. And finally, our pillar around leading. So really looking at how we can influence positive change and social change through policy and advocacy in our research work.
Thanks for that, Sharon. It sets the foundation for a conversation around, obviously, the complex work you do. And at the same time, we also want to draw back the curtains to understand more about why you do the work you do, share with us some individual stories. Kristy, what inspired you to want to work for Beyond Blue?
Well, I think mental health is universal, and it impacts so many people. So for me, the vision of Beyond Blue at its core to help all people in Australia achieve their best possible mental health is something that really resonated with me. My background, related to service design and measuring impact and positive impact, it went hand in hand in terms of what Beyond Blue is about, and at its core, what it's trying to achieve. It's ambitious, absolutely, but it doesn't mean that the ambition doesn't go hand in hand with the actual need that we're experiencing in Australia and possibly, from a global perspective. So for me, that in essence is why I work at Beyond Blue and do what I do with passion. And extremely proud to carry the badge of working with Beyond Blue.
And Sharon, you sort of touched on that previously. And Kristy, thank you for sharing that. I think it's such a great example of, we always feel honoured to have these conversations, and knowing that you have so much work to do, and there is such incredible passion from the teams of our NGO partners, because on the ground every day you're changing people's lives, and people are not in these roles to buy mansions, are they? They're in these roles to make a difference with their lives, right? and to make impact. And often, I must say, in my experience, some of the most joyful people I've seen are actually working in this sector. They know why they get up each day. They know the difference they're making each day, and they know why they do what they do. And if there's two great questions in life, or two great moments in life, one is the day you were born, the second is the day you found out why. I'm not sure if you feel perhaps that powerfully about it, but to be able to get up and do purposeful work each day is really an honour. So Sharon, I'm curious, there's a number of NGOs, charities working in this sector. Just briefly, perhaps the way in which you have a unique methodology, and the sort of focus and the impact of Beyond Blue, where you're seeing it have the greatest impact on people's lives in some of their darkest moments. How would you summarise that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there are a number of ways that Beyond Blue really does sort of hone where we're unique and where we can make a difference. And I spoke a little bit earlier about our new strategy about being earlier, easier together. But we've actually, to come up with that strategy, I guess we've actually spent a lot of time talking with our colleagues across the mental health sector. And really, we've been really deliberate about understanding and knowing our swim lane, and not confusing the market. One of the issues out there at the moment is it is very confusing to know where to go in terms of mental health. So we've really drawn on community insights and worked with our colleagues to know that we think that looking at that early intervention space is where we can really make that huge difference. So in terms of how we work, that is different to some of our colleagues. I think that we really know that mental health impacts people in really different ways, and people come to I guess being in a situation where their health is impacted for various reasons, whether it be lack of housing or not a safe home, job related, whether it be racism or discrimination, loneliness, all those sorts of things. So from that perspective, every individual is really different. And where Beyond Blue's way in which we work is different is that we really look at 3 key areas. We look at work for the individuals. We also work with the community, and we work for society. And that I guess triple level of the way in which we operate actually does make us a little bit different from other mental health organisations. So for the individuals, we make sure that we provide trusty information and services to support people who have the knowledge, skills and confidence to look after their mental health. For the community, we work with the community to ensure create supportive environments where they're looking after their health is normal. And for society, that's where I spoke about really advocating for system reform, social change. And we've been great at really identifying gaps in the community and the market and being able to, to turn that into real change. So in terms of that, I think we're making a huge impact in the community in terms of mental health.
And so would you see, Kristy, in terms of the people who use Beyond Blue as a support service, are there any particular themes or trends that have emerged over, say, the last even 12 months?
Oh,
or
yeah.
any sort of meaningful change, perhaps, that is worth highlighting?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think we've seen that there's 2 major trends that we've really observed, which is the youth engaging with our service and I guess the preference in how they want to engage. So we've seen a real shift in the preference of how our community members want to engage with the service, which is now leaning more towards the web chat option. So our service obviously is delivered via web chat, helpline and email, but I'd say the last 6 months of our handled web chats, this has significantly increased in over probably about 8,500, which is about 9% of more handled contacts on web chat. And I think there's also an increase in complexity of those inquiries. So just going back to Sharon's point, people are presenting with 2 or more mental health issues or risk factors. The complexity around that means the service and that brief intervention that we're trying to support that individual with in that moment in time is a challenge. And we're seeing consistent primary concerns for contacting the support service, which is predominantly anxiety, worry, relationship issues, diagnosed depression, adjustment and loss, isolation and loneliness, and work-related concerns, along with financial distress. We're also seeing an increase in frequent service users. So a frequent service user is somebody that is identified as trying to use the service multiple times per day. And the intent for our support service is that single episodic interaction to de-escalate and help that individual in that moment in time. But because of the demand across the mental health sector, and we know that that's increasing, that's putting a lot of demand and increase on our service to be able to help meet that need. In terms of impact that we're seeing, it's consistent and it's high in terms of the quality. So we try and measure the impact via multiple different ways. And our net promoter score is consistently tracking at around 47, 48, which is quite amazing. And we're seeing an increase in individuals reporting that they've been heard and understood. That's currently at about 86%, and that their inquiry was resolved. So that empowerment piece, and it's around 79, 80% where we're seeing individuals feeling less distressed, which is the ultimate goal of our service. You know, we want to provide information, that brief counselling intervention that enables that individual to feel less distressed and then act on the information that we've provided. So yeah, they're the key areas that we're really starting to see.
And so I guess given this shift towards more digital outreach, where are you seeing the opportunities and challenges moving forward in order to address that change?
Yeah, look, I think we've acknowledged that the youth engagement is something where we have to shift and change the way that we approach the service. So it's really enabled us to look at how we can shift the dial in how we respond to those individuals. We've got several optimization initiatives, of which some are still in development phase. So we're optimizing the user journey through web chat. And what we're trying to do is capture key information prior to that individual engaging with the counsellor, which really maximises the quality of support in that moment with that counsellor, rather than taking up time asking sort of demographic information. We've also incorporated the ability to route our users to counsellors with high proficiency in a specific channel of support, so that uplift in capability skills for the workforce to be able to respond to that increase in demand of web chat, so upskilling that digital capacity as well, and that digital literacy. We've got improved identification and coordination of those familiar users, so really understanding and being able to identify where we've got that increase in familiar users accessing the service that potentially might be out of scope, so that we can better support that individual. And then we've got another initiative which is developing an attribute-based routing service that enables an individual to provide preferences on the counsellor, which could be based on gender or age, depending on what preference that individual is asking for. And then we're also really keen to unpack and improve the referral pathway. We understand that there are going to be individuals with those complex needs that do need longer, more specialised support. So a key initiative for us that we're working on currently is really understanding and uplifting those referral pathways and partnerships that we can develop, so that we do that warm transfer of that individual to an organisation that might better support that individual over a longer period of time. So yeah, we've got quite a lot of things on the go that hopefully will improve the community experience.
And Sharon, delivering this quality and capacity requires funding. Both nodding there.
Yes.
How, cost of living, etc., which will be exacerbating mental health issues. Obviously, that also has an impact on capacity to raise philanthropic funding. What are you seeing in this economic climate? And in terms of that ability to raise funding, how is this perhaps putting pressure on the organisation, and what's the pathway forward?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And I think it's probably the thing that does keep me up at night, because the incredible work that Kirsty's talking about, my team are working with people like yourselves and the businesses that work with Equal Change to really make a difference. And you're absolutely right, Jeremy. The economic pinch, I can't lie, Beyond Blue is feeling that as well, and we know that our donors are. But it's actually been really interesting for us, the journey, I guess, in terms of that philanthropic support during the pandemic. Interestingly enough, I guess at Beyond Blue, we probably had a silver lining from a philanthropy point of view during the pandemic. Unlike other charities, unfortunately, people did start to understand the impacts of mental health. People who may not have experienced mental ill health prior to it were suddenly impacted by loneliness or job insecurity, and many more people were impacted, which also then meant that those, I guess, who weren't were seeing family and friends. And so we actually experienced quite a lot of growth in philanthropy during the pandemic, different to many other charities, because mental health was top of mind. And I guess we're actually seeing the bell curve of that at the moment we have the cost of living economic crisis, but also that maybe decline after some really extraordinary gifts during that pandemic period. So I think that the key for us, you probably have seen some headlines recently about Beyond Blue and some decreasing of income in the last couple of years. They're true, but there's a little bit behind them. So the headlines were that we have seen a drop of $18 million in the last 2 years from philanthropy. Reality is, if you read the real headlines, is that we actually had a $10 million bequest 2 years ago, which is the most significant gift that I've seen in 30 years of fundraising. And we were also at that time involved with a really significant external event. But the real difference that we're seeing is in the last financial year, we did have a decline of about $4 million in income that we had, assumed would come in and we're banking on. So that's where I'm concerned. In terms of the way forward, we are really looking at, we've just launched sort of a new strategy to really look at increased support and investment from the business community and looking at additional ways in which we can partner with organisations. We're also working on launching some new signature events in the market so that we can broaden the way in which the community can get involved. And it really is just continuing to share the great work of the organisation and work with organisations such as yourselves and all of your supporters who are online, because the need for our community doesn't go away. We need to make sure that we are there to answer every call. So from our perspective, we will find a solution, and there is a solution, and more people are aware of the impacts of mental health. So it's about getting out there constantly and talking to the community, and we know that the community will come on board.
Can you give us some top-line numbers around the growth in average numbers of people reaching out on an annual basis? Is it increasing, for example, sort of 10% annually? What are the approximate numbers per year?
Yeah,
look,
look, Jeremy, we're forecasting around 8%, between 8 to 10%, just organic forecast in demand. And so that's without us, trying to do any campaigns or highlighting the fact that we're here. So that organic growth is going to significantly increase, and that's going to be year on year. We're still experiencing the impact of COVID. We're also seeing the impact of demand and other organisations, particularly crisis organisations, that are not able to meet that demand. So naturally, Beyond Blue, the intention and the vision that we've got in enabling all Australians to improve their mental health, naturally that they're going to come to us. So that increase in demand is compounded by
every year. So about 10%, 8 to 10% each year.
8 to 10%, yeah.
And how many people on average are reaching out every year?
It's about 300,000.
300,000, and about 8 to 10% increase each year. So I think that gives us an example of the enormity. So the elephant in the room for me is what's going on, right? And I'd love to just explore this for a moment, if we may. I've spent a lot of time in the developing world, and my sense is that people living in communities that may materially have less, but where they have each other, direct connection to place, to community, to sense of purpose, to a strong cultural identity, connection to land, tend to be, in my experience, happier, tend to have, I've been to communities where they actually do not know what mental health is. And these are educated people who have been, travelled. They're not ignorant. They've got each other. The different generations live together, and there's rites of passage. And I don't want to romanticize what happens in the developing world, because there's a number of additional challenges. But in terms of the fabric of community, it's still alive. And it seems that in terms of what maintains people's sense of well-being is in many respects not complicated. But in the developed world, obviously Australia, Western Europe, the US, etc., we're seeing this epidemic of mental health. So I'd just be curious to get sort of top line your thoughts on what do you think is happening at the heart of the issue for Australians? Is it loneliness? Is it a sense of alienation, disconnection from purpose? What would be your thoughts on what's driving these numbers?
Yeah, look, Jeremy, there's loneliness, there's isolation, there's childhood trauma. That is something that has been prevalent, as a result of COVID and the last 2 years that we've experienced. There's been a lot of childhood trauma that's kind of come at the forefront of individuals that has left them trying to go back to the normal way of living and working. And it's just something that is not being addressed. And I think COVID is potentially got those individuals to actually accept and acknowledge that there's historical trauma and issues that need to be addressed. So that's what we're seeing. The last 12 to 18 months, we're starting to see that prominence of isolation, anxiety, getting back to the new normal and what that feels and looks like. We've also got to factor in those environmental, factors, the floods and those. There's been additional environmental factors that have triggered and impacted individuals across a couple of the states as well. So, combine that with the impact of COVID and what that's meant for people's mental health in quite a restricted environment is naturally going to cause some challenges and bring things to the surface that potentially people had kind of put in a box and left and dealt with, that they just can't deal with, and they need to address that to be able to move on. So I think for me, that is something that is prominent in terms of that coping mechanism and being able to address those issues that I think we're still going to see, potentially the next 3 to 5 years.
And I think I would add to that too, Kristy, that I think one of the great things that I can say in terms of where Beyond Blue has undertaken in our 20+ year history is that I think actually raising awareness and slowly breaking down the stigma about help-seeking behaviour.
Yeah,
I think that part of that very much is that, again, that silver lining is that people are realising that if they do reach out early, we really are encouraging people to identify those early signs and symptoms, reach out for support, that actually we can have more people doing that, then we can avoid people getting into that crisis end of mental health care. So that is a double-edged sword, because obviously that's exactly what we want, but then we need to service that demand. So it's probably a good thing that help-seeking behaviour is increasing. Yeah.
Just echoing that, Sharon, and that's the intention of the support service. We want to meet individuals in that moment and empower them that, that it is okay to talk about it and that it is okay to get help and encourage that help seeking. But totally agree, it is that double-edged sword. We want to encourage and normalize the fact that, people have mental health issues. That's okay. But that comes with the increased demand because people want to talk about it. They want to seek help, which is amazing. But, balancing the demand and at the pace of the demand is something that we're challenged with.
And Jeremy, you're absolutely right there around connection. I think that's something that we very much recommend, recognise that the power of connection, the power of people coming together and talking, and that, that we are different in a Western community, but that is so important. And it's why a lot of what we do is about making those formal and informal connections, ensuring the voice of lived experience in everything that we undertake. I think that is just absolutely vital, because that is what's going to help people build resilience.
Sharon, if we could perhaps start with you. I mean, you're both obviously very passionate about the work that you do. Where does this come from? Was it a moment or a series of moments in your life? If you could share that with us, it would be really wonderful.
Absolutely. I guess that in terms of, for me, I guess there's two components to the passion. There's the passion for the cause, but also the passion for the profession, I guess, that I'm in. So I've been in fundraising for 30 years, and that's given an amazing amount of joy to be able to, I guess I have my purpose for working every day of my life, whether it be with this organisation or with other parts of the not-for-profit sector. So I have had 30 years of building up and knowing that every day, in my small way, that I can make a difference to people that I don't know. Those who we are supporting through the Beyond Blue support service are people that I probably will never come directly in contact with, but the stories that come through, the stories of hope, recovery and resilience, the stories of people who may have lost loved ones, or who picked up the phone and knew that if their family member didn't pick up that phone, that they might not have them today. That constantly builds my passion. It builds my resilience in terms of what I'm doing every day. But I wouldn't work in anything other than the not-for-profit space, Jeremy. It's absolutely in my blood. And Beyond Blue is just such an incredible organisation to work with. It's such a privilege to work with people like Kristy and her team. But to really meet those in the community who are, who've been through their own lived experience and have a story to tell. And most of the passion there is that they actually want to get involved and want to engage because they're motivated if they've lost a son or a daughter or a workmate, to ensure that it actually doesn't happen to anyone else, and that they can make a difference by sharing and by encouraging people to reach out. So yes, sorry, probably a long answer, but I'm extremely passionate about the not-for-profit space, but in particular by the work that Beyond Blue does every day.
Thanks, Sharon. And Kristy, for you, what inspired you, and perhaps even what are some of the great joys of your work?
Oh, look, I personally have lived experience, so, I can absolutely resonate with a youth, trying to navigate their own mental health and the repercussions of what that looks and feels like, 10, 20, 30 years later. So at its core, the absolute, immense work that Beyond Blue and how I can impact directly or indirectly for those individuals in Australia to improve their mental health, then yeah, look, that is, it just fills my cup every day. Naturally, I've got an appetite for positive change in all aspects of my life. Call myself an optimistic realist, so I'm all about making things happen. So not just talking about it, seeing a change in the world, however small that might look like. And yeah, look, I've got a 15-year-old that's watching me as well, so he's listening and learning in terms of the impact that we're making to the population. So I think that's really integral. And just looking at the feedback and the community insights that we are constantly gathering, that truly helps inform the way that we're delivering a service and truly helps meet the community's needs, I think is an absolute joy. It's not just, we are literally walking the walk. We're listening to our community and we're adapting and changing the service based on their needs. We're not just talking about it, we're really making change. So yeah, love it.
It strikes me as one of the sort of foundational elements that you offer is the ability to connect with people, as Sharon, as you just said, and for people to know they can reach out, which is sadly for a lot of people, my sense is they don't know who to reach out to, or they don't have a trusted elder or even friend that they can reach out to in this way, and which obviously creates connection and being listened to, and in your case, obviously people who are trained expertly to listen and ask the right questions. I had a family member who took his life several years ago, and thank you. I mean, it's sort of that thing that you don't think it's going to happen to your family until it does.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
and what struck me is that, I mean, he had a number of issues challenges over the years, but I think if he had just reached out to us or reached out to someone or felt that he could, the result may have been different. And there's a lot of people quietly suffering, which is what you would be, connecting to every day. The extent to which people, it's almost like we are conditioned to go out in the world and put on a brave face. And a lot of people don't feel like putting on a brave face, and that could be exhausting in and of itself, right? Putting on a bloody brave face when you're not feeling that way at all.
Exactly.
And so it's so critical, the work you do, giving people the ability to not have to be brave and to be vulnerable and to actually share what they're really going through. And that can be healing quite quickly as well, just having someone listen to you and even point you in the right direction. So I understand why you're passionate about your work, and it's really an honor for us to be supporting you. What do you just sort of on if we just touch back on the fundraising, because obviously this is the lifeblood of the organisation as far as delivering those services. So we're really honoured to have raised over $188,000 and counting for Beyond Blue, and thank you so much to the incredible I Could Change retailers who are giving back. That's really $1 at a time. What does funding like this do for the organisation? Can you sort of bring that to life, what that amount of money can do and how it impacts people's lives?
Absolutely. Look, I would also reiterate, Jeremy, thank you to yourselves, but also all of your supporters out there, all of the businesses who support through I=Change, and your customers. It really does make an incredible difference. So Kirsty's spoken quite a bit about the support service today, and probably what we haven't actually touched on is the fact that our support service is 100% funded through philanthropy. So in fact, all of that great work does not happen without the support of organisations and businesses such as yourselves. You did note that incredible figure that you have raised of over 188,000 and counting. And I'm thrilled to let you know that what that has actually achieved to date is that means that already over 2,848 people, to be exact, at least would have been able to reach out to that support service. And for us, it is just, essential that we're there to answer every call. So, and for us, it's not just the calls being answered, it's actually that if, getting that information out there and people knowing that the support's there, that, if they make that call rather than making some other decision in life, then that is just immeasurable to us. So it's the funds that are raised are incredible, the awareness that helps us raise, and the difference that makes. I'll just, I guess, share a few of the impacts and insights from Kirsty's team, and that is that some of the feedback from recent, from people who'd used the service is that they said 83% of people who contacted the support service have actually reported after engagement that they have felt heard and understood. 75% have said that after engagement they've felt less distressed. 83% have said that they felt the service was, that they basically answered their questions. But most importantly to me, 80% of people said that they would actually act on the advice that they'd been given. So for me, it's when I hear feedback like that comes from Kirsty's team, that's really is the impact. It's the funds are ensuring that we can actually answer every call, but those calls actually do save lives or make an impact on the way in which people address their mental health moving forward. So that's just absolutely immeasurable, and I can't thank you enough.
And how can I=Change businesses continue to help?
Oh, there's always ways that I=Change can continue to help in terms of the businesses. So obviously, I'm hopefully that most of the people who are online today have already switched on Beyond Blue as one of the options for you to be able to support. But I mean, even if you are supporting a number of charities, if you can think about, in particular, in October is Mental Health Month. So if you can really try and push this with your customers, and it'll be really great to ensure that in particular in that month that we really get that conversation going, and it'll be at a time when there'll be lots of media around mental health. So your customers actually will be thinking about mental health, and to be able to see that connection to Beyond Blue to enable us to increase those that dollar per click will be amazing. The other project that we do have going on, which within your own businesses people might be interested in doing, in October this year, we have a great event called Big Blue Table. So whether it be personally register, it's very easy to register. It's basically getting people to come together, talk about mental health and mental health impacts over a meal, sharing, breaking down the stigma, having great conversations. So it might be a workplace morning tea, it might be that extra long lunch with friends, it might be painting your own, plastering your own kitchen in blue and inviting your friends and family around for a dinner party. There's lots of ways that people can engage with that, but it really is not only about raising funds, but also about having those really impactful conversations and spreading the word. So if people are interested in doing that individually or as a work group, I know Beyond Blue ourselves, we host a big blue table each year, and it's a great way even for our staff to come together and to think about what we do. So we've got a website there for bigbluetable.com.au. And then finally, obviously, if any of your amazing businesses would like to sort of talk about, one-on-one, looking at some sort of cause-related marketing, additional partnership, or looking at those sorts of activities, we are always open to having a chat. Lots of ideas.
Thanks, Sharon. No, that's great. And so for any businesses that are supporting Beyond Blue or businesses that are considering working with I=Change, Beyond Blue is obviously doing incredible work. What we found is those key days like Mental Health Month or periods are really great launch moments for business to come on board. And so we provide content, storytelling, data, the ability to have a live counter, to talk about the number of lives that have been impacted and the amount raised, and really bring to life with 100% transparency your impact as an organisation. And of course, all businesses, there is increased pressure, and this is not going away, to meet those ESG expectations around environmental, sustainable, social and governance, and the requirement from both staff and customers and clients that as a business you are helping to build a better world. And obviously the mental health of our community is crucial in order for us to function, to be well, to create safe and prosperous communities. And so Beyond Blue are obviously doing extraordinary work in Australia. Final question, if I may, and I'll phrase this slightly differently to both of you. Kristy, if I start with you, what keeps you going and what do you most look forward to each day?
Ooh,
it's a big one.
It is.
I've got another bigger one for Sharon coming up in a minute. So.
Oh, look how, I've got a constant drive of making positive changes. I think for me, I think if I can go to sleep at night knowing that I've truly stuck to my core purpose in life, which is, I guess, keeping everyone I connect with safe, happy, that I empower them to make real positive changes and know their worth. And whether that's directly or indirectly through my work or personal life, then yeah, that's what keeps me going every day.
And Sharon, when you look back on your life many years from now, what do you believe you will be most proud of?
Look, I think it's interesting. You spoke a little while ago about community and connections. And when I think about that, it is, I think that I'll look back, that I know that I've lived my life with, I guess with honesty and integrity, and made some brilliant connections along the way. And, I did say that I've worked for 30 years in the not-for-profit sector, and I wouldn't be anywhere else. But that's because it aligns both my professional and my personal values. And I think that it is that value of giving back, that value of connecting with people, and that gives me so much more back. That is actually what fills my cup. It is what gives me a sense of purpose. And it's, I think you started today talking about, that those moments of when you're born and then when you work out what your purpose is. So I hope that I look back, and that the however many years that I'm on this planet for, I hope that I've made a difference both in my professional life and in the connections that I've made in my personal life.
Thank you for sharing that, both of you. And I think, Sharon, that last point touches on something fundamental around being able to align your professional and personal values.
Absolutely.
It's something that I think the not-for-profit sector and those working within it are largely, or often uniquely receive the benefit from. Whereas, I mean, it's changing, right? But often in the corporate sector or strictly for profit, people have to leave their personal values at home or at the door, and that's shifting. And I think there is absolutely a trend towards, internal stakeholders in the company demanding that every business, tell a bigger story and stand for something broader. But nothing uniquely like the not-for-profit sector, where you can bring your values to work. And that passion every day. Thank you so much, both of you, for your time and sharing. I just note we do have a few questions that have come in from viewers. So from Instagram, what are some resources or tools you would recommend for someone who wants to learn more about mental health and wellbeing?
Absolutely. I'm happy to make a start on that. Certainly in terms of Beyond Blue itself, I would definitely start with our website. Part of the service that we provide is that I've mentioned that word, the big blue door. We really do aim to be that first point of call. We don't provide all of the services. We don't provide all of the support, but really is our mission to demystify and enable people to really reach out to us. And so there's certainly information on the site, whether it be that it's about your personal journey money around. There's tools on there that people can undertake, and Kirsty will probably remember the actual tool there is, but basically people can do a bit of a test to find out where their own sort of mental health scale is. There's tools around if you're supporting someone as a family member or carer. There are links to our BU resources if it is in relation to school-aged or young children. So really, initially, I would actually reach out to the Beyond Blue website. There is a huge amount of information online, and all designed in a really, as easy as possible a way for people to engage with.
Thank you. We have another question coming in. How can we support Beyond Blue's mission aside from making a donation?
Oh, look, I think the other one, I'm jumping in again, Kirsty, so just jump over. But I think that for me, I often do say, obviously, the impact of donations makes an incredible impact, but it is just as important, those conversations and that sharing. So even if you can't donate, please talk about Beyond Blue. Please have those conversations with your community, with your family, with your customers, with your friends, that it's okay to talk about mental health, and it's okay to ask if people are not okay, and just to listen. So I think it is about helping us continue to make that conversation accessible. If I've got a broken leg, I'm going to ask what sort of rehab I need to do. We need to actually normalize that conversation. And so beyond those donations, you can talk about Beyond Blue. You can talk about us being there if people need it, and you can just normalize those conversations in your everyday life. That awareness is so important to us. And as I say, if one person actually does pick up the phone to our support service or reach out online for some of those resources, instead of making a different decision and trying to go it alone, then you could actually be saving lives. So the awareness is as, if not more, in fact it is, it's more important to us than the money.
And one final question, can you highlight a few of the key signs that someone might be experiencing mental health challenges?
Can I flick that one to you, Kirsty?
Yeah, look, I think the key signs is the isolation piece, recognizing the usual, normal individual in terms of how their current characteristics look like. If that significantly changes or shifts, or you see a difference in the engagement of that individual that's not the norm for you as an individual, whether that's a friend, a relative, a sibling, if that starts to feel and look a bit different, it's opening that conversation in asking, are you okay? Is there anything going on? So it's anything slightly different, it's absolutely fine to start asking the question and starting that conversation, of which some will be really open, some won't, but that consistent, are you okay? And that acknowledgement that it's okay for you to then reach out to our support service to just check and just say, look, I'm experiencing this with this individual, I'm not quite sure. And our support service counsellors and coaches will give you some tips and tools to use to either carry on with those conversations or get that individual to access our support service. So yeah, there's some key things, but yeah, always reach out to our support service if there's any indication that you're experiencing something different, and they'll give you some really key pointers as to how to adapt to that situation.
Thank you very much. So Kirsty, Support Services Operations Lead at Beyond Blue, and Sharon, Head of Fundraising, Philanthropy. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us. That's been a really rich conversation, and I think brings to life the work that you do, the complexity, the challenges, and just how critical it is in this time. So thank you again for joining us.
Great. And Jeremy, thank you to yourself and to everyone who is involved with I Equals Change. The support that you've given us has just been immeasurable over the years, and we just can't thank you enough. And hopefully today you've just had a little bit of an insight in terms of the impact. So thank you to all of you that are supporting Beyond Blue.
It's our pleasure. It's our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.